I never thought I'd become the kind of man who stared at his wife's phone while she slept beside me. I used to judge people who did that. If you loved someone, you trusted them. That was the whole point of marriage, wasn't it? Two people against the world. No secrets. No games. No reason to doubt the person lying next to you every night. But doubt doesn't arrive all at once. It sneaks in quietly. Small things. Tiny moments your brain tries to explain away because the truth feels too ugly to accept. For me, it started on a Tuesday night. Emily was sitting beside me on the couch, smiling at her phone. Not just smiling. Grinning. The kind of smile people make when they forget anyone else exists. I asked what was so funny, expecting her to show me some video or stupid meme like she always used to. Instead, she locked her screen immediately. Just work stuff, she said. Work stuff. Nobody smiles at work messages like that. I remember the strange feeling that settled in my stomach. Not pain. Not anger. Just confusion. Like my mind noticed something before my heart was ready to. Still, I ignored it. That's what people in love do. They ignore things they shouldn't. We'd been married for 6 years. 6 years of routines and memories and ordinary little moments that become your entire life without you realizing it. Saturday grocery runs. Midnight fast food cravings. Falling asleep during movies because she always stole the blanket and somehow half the bed too. She used to tell me everything. If someone annoyed her at work, I heard about it. If she saw something funny online, she shoved the phone in my face before I could even ask. She used to reach for my hand automatically whenever we walked anywhere together. That was the version of Emily I knew. At first, it was subtle. She started taking her phone everywhere. Bathroom. Kitchen. Laundry room. Face down on the table whenever we ate together. Then came the late nights. Work's been crazy lately, she'd say while slipping her shoes on. I believed her because I wanted to. The distance between us grew slowly enough that I kept adjusting to it instead of confronting it. Like sitting in cold water that drops 1 degree at a time. I tried fixing things before I even understood what was broken. I planned dinner dates she barely paid attention through. Bought flowers that sat untouched on the counter for days. I started coming home earlier from work. Started listening more carefully whenever she talked. I thought maybe we were just becoming one of those couples that drift apart if they stop trying. But every time I reached for her emotionally, it felt like she was somewhere else entirely. Sometimes I'd catch her staring into space with this strange sadness on her face. Other times she seemed irritated by my presence alone. Like conversations with me had become chores she needed to finish. The worst part wasn't the distance. It was the pretending. She still kissed me goodbye every morning. Still asked how my day was. Still slept beside me every night. But it felt mechanical. Hollow. Like she was acting like my wife instead of being my wife. One night I woke up around 2 in the morning and realized she wasn't in bed. I found her downstairs sitting in darkness, illuminated only by her phone screen. The second she saw me, she locked it. "You scared me," she snapped. I apologized even though I hadn't done anything wrong. That's how twisted things had become. I was the one feeling guilty all the time. Then came the perfume. Emily never wore perfume to work before. Suddenly she wore it almost every day. New dresses appeared in the closet. New heels. New makeup. She cared about things she stopped caring about years ago. But never around me. That was the detail that haunted me most. She stopped trying in our marriage while somehow trying harder everywhere else. I started losing sleep. My thoughts became poison. Every vibration from her phone felt personal. Every smile she had felt like betrayal even before I had proof. But love makes you pathetic. Even then, I kept defending her in my own head. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe she was depressed. Maybe I was insecure. I clung to every possible explanation except the obvious one. Until the night everything finally cracked open. Around 10:30, something inside me broke. I don't even know why I did it. I picked up my phone and called her office landline casually, already rehearsing how stupid I'd feel afterward for doubting her. A tired receptionist answered. I asked if my wife was still there. There was a pause. Then the woman said, Emily left around 6. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. I thanked her somehow. Hung up somehow. Then I just sat there in silence. Your mind does strange things in moments like that. Mine still tried protecting me. Maybe she went out with co-workers. Maybe she forgot to mention it. Maybe there was some explanation that didn't destroy my entire life. Midnight came. Then 12:30. I was standing near the living room window before I even realized I'd moved there. And then headlights swept across the driveway. A black car pulled up slowly outside the house. I saw Emily in the passenger seat. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. She laughed at something the driver said. A laugh I hadn't heard from her in months. Then she leaned across the center console. And kissed him. I don't remember breathing after I saw them kiss. Everything inside me just stopped. The world outside the window kept moving normally. The car engine still hummed. Rain tapped softly against the glass. Somewhere down the street a dog barked. But inside me, something collapsed so violently it felt physical. Emily smiled at him before getting out of the car. Smiled. Like she belonged to another life now. I stepped back from the window before she reached the front door, my legs suddenly weak. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might actually pass out. I kept waiting for my brain to reject what I saw. To tell me I misunderstood it somehow. But there was nothing to misunderstand. A married woman doesn't kiss another man goodbye at midnight unless something is already broken beyond repair. The front door opened. Emily walked in quietly, probably expecting me to be asleep. She kicked off her heels softly and set her purse down on the table. For a second I just stared at her from across the living room. It was surreal. She looked exactly the same. Same face. Same hair. Same woman I married. But suddenly she felt like a stranger wearing my wife's skin. When she noticed me standing there, she flinched slightly. Oh, she said. You're still awake. Her voice sounded normal. That's the part that destroyed me most. The calmness. The ease. Like she had already gotten comfortable lying to me. Yeah, I answered quietly. She avoided eye contact for half a second before forcing a tired smile. Long night. I watched her carefully. Every movement. Every blink. Wondering how long she'd been doing this. Wondering how many times she kissed him before coming home and climbing into bed beside me. I suddenly remembered every weird moment from the past few months all at once. The hidden phone screen. The coldness. The perfume. The distance. It all connected so perfectly that I almost hated myself more than her. How could I have been this blind? Emily started walking toward the kitchen. I'm exhausted, she muttered. That meeting took forever. Meeting. The lie came so naturally. That word hit me harder than the kiss itself. Because it meant she had no intention of telling me the truth. Even now. Even after everything. I followed her slowly. What clients were there? I asked. She paused near the sink. I saw it happen. Just for a second. Her brain scrambling for details. The Denver account, she said quickly. They flew in late. Denver account. Another lie. My chest tightened. I realized then that trust doesn't disappear all at once. It dies sentence by sentence. I nodded slowly like I believed her. Then I asked, did the Denver account kiss you goodnight too? Everything froze. Emily's face lost color instantly. For a moment neither of us moved. The silence felt massive. What? She whispered. I saw you, I said. My voice barely sounded human anymore. Too calm. Too empty. The car outside. The kiss. I saw all of it. She stared at me like someone had ripped the floor out from under her. No. Don't. My voice cracked suddenly. Don't lie again. Her mouth opened but no words came out. And somehow that hurt even worse. Because guilty silence tells the truth better than confessions ever can. I felt anger rising so fast it scared me. How long? I asked. Emily looked down immediately. How long? I repeated louder. It's not. How long, Emily? Her eyes filled with tears instantly, but I couldn't feel sympathy anymore. Not yet. All I could feel was humiliation burning through my chest. A few months, she whispered. Months. I actually laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because my brain couldn't process the pain correctly anymore. Months. While I was buying flowers. While I was trying to fix us. While I blamed myself every night wondering why my own wife seemed so far away. She started crying quietly. I didn't mean for this to happen. That sentence nearly broke me. People always say that after they destroy someone. Like betrayal is weather. Like cheating just falls from the sky without choices attached to it. You didn't mean for it to happen, I said. You accidentally kissed another man? Accidentally lied to me for months. It wasn't supposed to go this far. There shouldn't have been a beginning. She covered her face with shaking hands. We were already falling apart. No, I snapped. You were pulling away while I tried to save this marriage by myself. The truth exploded out of me then. Every sleepless night. Every ignored effort. Every moment I felt unwanted in my own home. You know what the worst part is? I said. I kept blaming myself. I thought maybe I wasn't doing enough. Maybe I wasn't attentive enough. Meanwhile you were out there with someone else. Emily started crying harder. But the tears didn't stop the rage anymore. I wanted answers. I wanted something that made sense. Who is he? She hesitated too long. That hesitation cut deeper than the answer itself. You care about protecting him right now? I said in disbelief. No. Then who is he? A guy from work. Of course he was. Every cliché suddenly became my real life. I turned away from her because I couldn't stand looking at her anymore. My hands were shaking violently now. I pressed them against the counter trying to steady myself. The clock on the wall kept ticking. Tick. 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 It sounded unbearable. Funny the things your brain notices when your life is collapsing. I loved you, I said quietly. Emily sobbed behind me. I still do, I admitted. And that's what makes this feel like dying. She walked toward me carefully. Please. I stepped away immediately. That hurt her visibly. Good. For once I wanted her to feel even a fraction of what she'd done to me. Did you ever love me at all? I asked. She looked shattered by the question. But she didn't answer right away. And that silence told me everything. I felt something inside me go numb then. The anger faded suddenly, replaced by exhaustion so deep I could barely stand. I stopped yelling. Stopped asking questions. Because none of the answers mattered anymore. The marriage I thought I had was already gone. Without another word, I walked past her and into our bedroom. I opened the closet slowly. Emily followed me, panic growing in her voice. What are you doing? I grabbed my suitcase from the top shelf and dropped it onto the bed. Her crying turned desperate instantly. Please don't do this. I ignored her and started pulling clothes from drawers mechanically. Shirts. Jeans. Anything I could reach. My hands moved automatically while my mind stayed completely blank. Then suddenly she screamed behind me. Not angry. Terrified. If you walk out that door, she cried, you'll destroy more than just this marriage. Her words stopped me mid-motion. I turned around slowly, still holding a handful of clothes. Emily stood near the bedroom door trembling so hard she looked like she might collapse. Tears streamed down her face uncontrollably, but this was different from before. Earlier she looked guilty. Now she looked terrified. What does that even mean? I asked coldly. She shook her head immediately. Just, please stop packing for 1 second. I laughed bitterly. You don't get to tell me what to do anymore. I know, she whispered. I know I don't. Her voice cracked so badly the last word barely came out. For a moment neither of us spoke. The suitcase sat open on the bed between us like proof that everything had finally shattered beyond repair. I should have walked out right then. Every logical part of me wanted to. But something about the fear in her eyes kept me standing there. "What are you talking about?" I asked again. Emily wiped at her face with shaking hands, trying and failing to steady herself. "You think this is only about the affair?" My jaw tightened instantly. "Only?" I snapped. "You cheated on me. I know what I did." "Do you? Because right now it sounds like you're trying to explain it away." "No," she shook her head harder. "I'm trying to explain why everything fell apart." I stared at her silently. She looked exhausted suddenly. Not emotionally. Physically. The kind of exhaustion that lives deep inside someone. Then she said the words that changed everything. 3 months ago, I found out I'm sick." The anger in my chest stumbled for a second. "What?" Emily looked down at the floor. "I didn't tell you because I didn't know how." I felt confused more than anything. My brain struggled to process the shift happening in front of me. "What do you mean sick?" She swallowed hard. "The doctors found something during a scan. At first they thought it was treatable, but then more tests came back." Her voice started shaking again. "It's serious." The room suddenly felt smaller. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. Waiting for the manipulation. Some part of me refused to believe her because of everything else she'd lied about. But the fear in her face looked real. Painfully real. "What are you saying?" I asked quietly. Emily wrapped her arms around herself like she was cold. "They don't know how bad it is yet. They're still running tests, but..." She stopped talking and pressed trembling fingers against her mouth. "But what?" "They said there's a chance it's aggressive." Silence swallowed the room. I felt anger and confusion colliding violently inside me. "You're telling me this now?" I said. "Right after I catch you cheating?" I know how it sounds. It sounds insane. I was scared. The words came out so small they almost didn't sound human. For the first time that night, I didn't know what to say. Emily slowly sat down on the edge of the bed, looking completely drained. "When they told me, I couldn't breathe. I drove around for hours afterward because I couldn't figure out how to come home and tell you." I stood frozen near the closet. She continued, speaking through tears. "You looked at me like I was your whole world, and suddenly I was carrying this thing inside me that could destroy both of us." My mind flashed back suddenly. The nights she sat alone downstairs. The distracted staring. The crying I once heard through the bathroom door that she blamed on stress. I remembered prescription bottles I briefly noticed in her purse weeks ago but never questioned. "How long have you known?" I asked. "Almost 3 months." 3 months. The same amount of time as the affair. The realization hit me instantly. I looked at her sharply. "That's when all of this started." Emily nodded slowly. "I felt like my entire life ended in one appointment," she whispered. "And instead of talking to you, I just started falling apart. I wanted to hold on to my anger. God, I wanted to. After what she'd done, anger felt safer than understanding. But now confusion poisoned everything." "Who is he?" I asked again quietly. She closed her eyes briefly. "Nobody important." That's not an answer. He was just there. The bitterness returned immediately. "So you slept with another man because you got bad news?" "No," she shook her head desperately. "It wasn't about love." "Then what was it about?" Emily looked at me with a broken expression I'd never seen before. "Escape." That word hung heavily between us. She explained how the fear consumed her slowly. Every doctor visit made her feel less like herself. Every test result made the future feel shorter. She stopped recognizing the woman in the mirror. And instead of leaning on me, she started running from everything. From the diagnosis. From the fear. From me. "I didn't know how to let you watch me become weak," she admitted. I clenched my jaw. "So you betrayed me instead." Fresh tears rolled down her face instantly. "I know." There was no defense left in her voice now. No excuses. Just shame. She told me the affair never even made her happy. It only distracted her temporarily. For a few hours at a time, she could pretend she wasn't terrified. But afterward she always hated herself more. Every lie made things worse. Every kiss filled her with guilt. I'd sit in my car after seeing him and cry before coming inside, she whispered. Sometimes I'd watch you sleeping and wonder how I became this person. I felt sick listening to it. Not because it erased the betrayal. Nothing could erase that. But because I could suddenly see the pain underneath it too. And that made everything harder. I pushed you away on purpose, she admitted quietly. I frowned. What? She looked directly at me for the first time all night. I thought if you stopped loving me before things got worse, losing me wouldn't destroy you. The sentence hit me harder than the affair confession itself. I couldn't speak. Emily broke down completely. I looked at the open suitcase on the bed. Then at my wife. My cheating wife. My terrified wife. Both truths existed at the same time now, tearing me apart internally. I hated what she did. But I could also see her drowning. And somehow that was worse. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel right now, I admitted. You don't have to forgive me. I can't. I know. The room fell silent again except for her uneven breathing. Then suddenly Emily winced sharply. Her hand gripped the edge of the bed. Emily. She tried standing but stumbled instantly. Her face went pale. For one horrifying second she looked completely disoriented. Then her knees gave out beneath her. And she collapsed onto the floor. I dropped to my knees beside her before I could even think. Emily. Her body trembled weakly against the floor. One hand pressed against her stomach while the other searched blindly for support that wasn't there. Her breathing came fast and uneven, like her lungs had forgotten how to work properly. The anger that consumed me minutes earlier vanished instantly beneath pure panic. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and called emergency services while trying to keep her conscious. She could barely focus on me. Her skin looked pale under the bedroom light, and seeing her like that made something twist violently inside my chest. I kept hearing my own voice repeating her name over and over while the operator asked questions I could barely process. By the time the ambulance arrived, the house no longer felt like a home. It felt like the ruins of something that had collapsed in a single night. The ride to the hospital blurred together in fragments. Bright lights. Cold air. Doctors speaking too fast. Emily lying motionless while machines beeped around her. At some point I found myself sitting alone in a waiting room at 3 a.m, staring at a vending machine without actually seeing it. That's when the silence finally hit me. Not the silence of the hospital. The silence inside my head after hours of screaming emotions. The betrayal was still there. The images still burned in my mind. Her kissing another man. Her lying to my face. The months of deception. But now those memories existed beside another image too. Emily crying alone in her car after doctor appointments. Emily sitting in darkness downstairs because she was too terrified to sleep. Emily believing the best way to protect me was to make me hate her first. None of it excused what she did. But pain stopped looking simple. A doctor finally approached me around dawn. He explained that Emily's condition was more serious than they initially believed. Stress had worsened things. Exhaustion too. They stabilized her for now, but more tests were needed immediately. I nodded through the entire conversation without fully hearing half the words. Serious. Aggressive. Treatment. Monitoring. Everything sounded distant. When the doctor left, I leaned forward and buried my face in my hands. Hours earlier I thought my marriage was ending. Now I wasn't even sure if my wife was going to survive. And somehow those two heartbreaks existed together inside me at the same time. Eventually they let me see her. Emily looked smaller in the hospital bed somehow. Fragile. The confidence and distance she carried for months had disappeared completely. Tubes and monitors surrounded her while morning light slowly crept through the blinds. When she opened her eyes and saw me sitting there, she immediately started crying again. You stayed, she whispered weakly. I looked down for a second before answering. I almost didn't. That honesty hurt her, but she nodded like she understood she deserved it. For a while neither of us spoke. There was nothing left to hide anymore. No fake smiles. No lies about work meetings. No pretending our marriage wasn't shattered. Just two exhausted people sitting in the truth. Finally Emily broke the silence. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Not dramatic. Not defensive. Just broken. "I know saying it changes nothing. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I need you to know that I never stopped loving you." I stared at the floor quietly. "You hurt me in ways I can't even explain," I admitted. "I don't know how to look at you right now without seeing all of it." Fresh tears slid down her face. "I know. You made me feel worthless. I'm sorry. You made me question everything about myself. I know." There was no argument left in her anymore. She accepted every word because deep down she'd already been punishing herself long before I found out. I rubbed my tired eyes slowly. "And the worst part," I said quietly, "part of me still loves you anyway." Emily covered her mouth as she cried harder. For months I thought the distance between us existed because we stopped caring. Now I realized we stopped communicating long before we stopped loving each other. Fear poisoned her. Silence poisoned me. And somewhere in the middle, our marriage started dying quietly while we both pretended not to notice. That didn't justify cheating. Nothing ever could. But relationships rarely collapse from one moment alone. Usually they crack slowly beneath all the things people refuse to say out loud. Emily looked toward me carefully. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said. "I don't even expect you to stay after this. But I need you to understand something." I stayed silent. "When you started packing that suitcase," her voice broke again, "I realized my last memory of us was going to be hatred." The room felt painfully quiet. "I could survive being sick," she whispered. "But I couldn't survive knowing I destroyed the person who loved me most." I looked at her for a long time without speaking. The woman in that hospital bed wasn't innocent. But she also wasn't evil. She was scared. Broken. Human. And unfortunately, humans destroy the things they love all the time. I slowly reached for her hand. Emily looked shocked the moment our fingers touched. Not because everything was fixed. Far from it. Trust doesn't magically return because someone cries in a hospital bed. The affair still existed. The lies still existed. The damage would follow us no matter what happened next. But love still existed too. And that was the hardest truth of all. She held my hand carefully like she was afraid I'd disappear if she gripped too tightly. "I miss who we used to be," she whispered. I swallowed hard. "So do I." For a while we just sat there listening to the machines hum softly around us. No yelling. No accusations. Just exhaustion. Then Emily turned toward me weakly. "Promise me something." I looked up. "If things get worse," she struggled to steady her breathing. "Promise me you'll remember who I was before I became afraid." That sentence shattered something inside me completely. Because I did remember. I remembered the woman who danced in the kitchen while cooking. The woman who laughed too loudly at terrible movies. The woman who used to grab my hand during thunderstorms because she secretly hated lightning. I remembered my wife before fear hollowed her out from the inside. And sitting there beside her hospital bed, I realized something painful. The worst part of betrayal isn't always losing the person you love. Sometimes it's realizing they were suffering right beside you the entire time, and neither of you knew how to save each other. The sun slowly rose outside the hospital window, covering the room in pale golden light. I sat beside her quietly, still holding her hand. I didn't know what our future looked like anymore. I didn't know if trust like ours could ever truly heal. But when she squeezed my hand weakly through her tears, I realized I couldn't let go yet either.